Hey everybody, welcome to Better Love and Sex. I am your host, Devi Ward, and I want to thank you for tuning in again. Hopefully you're tuning in live this evening as we have another sexy and enlightening conversation about how you, me, we, all of us can awaken, heal, and transform our sexuality so that we can have more love and better sex in our lives. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want more love and better sex? I'm very, very excited this evening to have with me a very special guest, Dr. Laurie Steelsmith. And I met Dr. Steelsmith about 3 years ago on the island of Oahu. I used to live in Hawaii. And I flew over to Oahu and I taught Dr. Steelsmith one day a Tantra workshop because she was exploring and doing research for her latest book, Great Sex Naturally. So a little bit about Dr. Steelsmith. I was very impressed with her. Not only is she a highly accomplished naturopathic physician, but she's also an amazing, wonderful human being. And she is a licensed naturopathic physician and acupuncturist and the author of the Hawaii best-selling book, Natural Choices for Women's Health, published by Random House in May 2005. Her latest book, which I've read, I actually was telling her that I read it all in one fell swoop all the way on the plane from Detroit to Washington State. I read it. It was like an 8-hour trip, and I just consumed the book. I devoured it. It was so fabulous. Her latest book is called Great Sex Naturally, and it was published by Hay House in July 2012. And it's a step-by-step guide for women. It is actually a step-by-step guide for women to have natural sexual health and healing, which is so necessary for many of us women because I think allopathic medicine just covers up many symptoms and doesn't actually address the core. And that's what's so awesome about natural healing is that it actually goes to the root and the cause of the issue to correct it at that level. Dr. Steelsmith is widely respected for her views on natural medicine. She's appeared on CNN's Health Watch, Fox, and NBC News affiliates, and has been interviewed on more than 100 national radio programs, and she can now say 101. She has had a busy private practice since 1993, all in Oahu. Is that correct, Dr. Steelsmith?
That's true. Yep, in Honolulu.
In Honolulu. And according to the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, Dr. Steelsmith is one of America's best-known naturopathic physicians, and I feel honored to know her as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, talking about your books, so Natural Choices for Women's Health, was that just kind of like an overview for women's health did it just cover all the bases?
That book was sort of my heart and soul, to tell you the truth, but it did cover all the bases. Yeah, it was a book that had to be born through me because I felt like I was finally at a place in my career about 10 years into it where I figured out how to integrate naturopathic medicine with Chinese medicine into an overall step-by-step guide for women to create health in their lives. There were so many books on the market about creating disease, but this was a book about how women can create health. And so I divided it into various chapters on breast health and bone health and mental health and pelvic health and hormone health and liver health and kidney health, etc. And because of that book, I actually felt like the pelvic health section of that book, it was lacking something. And what it was really lacking is giving women guidance on how to enhance their overall sexual health. And it seemed like there was a dearth of really good information out there for women that just wanted just basic natural information on how to increase their sexual chi or their sexual vitality and how to increase their sexual pleasure, especially in midlife. So I was very compelled to write the second book because I actually felt like there just wasn't enough information out there that was approachable and that was friendly and that felt comforting to read. There were books out there that were a little scary. Books that seemed like, oh my goodness, I'm never having sex again. So, I really felt like I needed to write a book that was a women's sexual health book to give them tips and tools on how to prevent urinary tract infections, how to prevent vaginitis, what to do with vulvovaginal dryness, how to balance their hormones so that they have not only less PMS, but more libido. And, so many patients came in to see me, and they were just like, Doctor, where did my libido go? And how come I just don't have it anymore?
So is that one of the number one health complaints, sexual health complaints, libido and loss of libido?
I would say yes, in addition to some other very real physical symptoms that women are experiencing that I think lead to lack of libido, and one of them is the vulvovaginal dryness that so many women don't realize is a natural part of menopause, but it doesn't have to be a natural part of menopause. They don't have to just suffer and bear it, that there are many natural solutions to treat that vulvovaginal dryness, because when sex is painful, it certainly doesn't make a woman really want to have sex again.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was actually speaking with somebody today, and she was asking me about vaginal dryness, and she's young, she's in her 20s, and from what I understand, my understanding is that, you know, our the way we lubricate and how much we lubricate can fluctuate throughout our lives, and I'm guessing that has something to do with our hormones. Is that correct?
It has a lot to do with our hormones, and it has a lot to do, from a Chinese perspective, with our kidney qi, and we can elaborate on that in a minute if you'd like.
I would love to. Please.
Okay, so this idea, like, we all have an idea of what hormones are, even if we don't quite kind of know exactly. But, you know, hormones are estrogen, they're progesterone, they're testosterone, they're cortisol from the adrenal glands. We know that our ovaries release hormones. We know that in a man, a testicle releases hormones. But we also know that our adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidneys, release hormones. And when people are going through a great deal of stress, then their bodies are going to trigger the adrenals to release a lot of stress hormones. Now, when a woman starts to go through perimenopause into menopause, and perimenopause can occur 8 to 10 years prior to menopause, and when she's going through perimenopause and her ovaries are having fluctuating levels of hormones, so some months she may not be ovulating, and other months she is ovulating. And when a woman ovulates, she releases progesterone. Her ovaries may be releasing estrogen, or it may not be. She may be producing some testosterone, or she may not be, because women have testosterone, they have estrogen, progesterone, they have DHEA. But when hormone levels become low, or they start to change, then women can have various symptoms. They can have changes in their menstrual cycle. They can have more hot flashes and night sweats. They can have insomnia, irritability. They can have exaggerated PMS symptoms, or heavier periods, or much lighter periods, or spotting. So looking at the whole picture, I think, is very important. But one idea, or one concept I like to bring across, is that when a woman is in perimenopause and her hormone levels are starting to decline, and she's heading more into menopause, it's the adrenal glands that have to pick up where the ovaries left off. So I always say to my patients, your ovaries are going through their career change, and it's really the adrenals that have to kind of move into that position. And now if we translate that over to Chinese medicine, in Chinese medicine they had no idea or any concept of what hormones were, okay? They didn't isolate things, they didn't extract them. But hormones were perceived as an energy force, okay? So they were perceived as qi, and qi is vital force. And the idea is, in Chinese medicine, that you are born with a certain amount of qi, and this is called essence. And this essence is given to you by your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your parents. And you're given a certain amount of essence, and you can either regenerate that essence through your meditative practices and your diet and your lifestyle, or you can exhaust those practices through poor eating habits, not getting enough sleep, too much stress. And the adrenal glands, in kind of our Western medical ideas of the adrenal glands, are sort of analogous to this idea of kidney qi, kidney essence, vital force in the East. And what one of the things that we want to do to help women through perimenopause into menopause, and really even to help your 20-year-old patient, is we want to help to build her kidney essence. We want to help to build her qi and her vital force. Mm-hmm. And that will help her to have a higher stress tolerance. That'll help her to have a happier life, because she's better able to cope with the rigors and even the joys of daily life. People have more joy. They have healthier immune systems. They feel more vital when they have an abundance of this kidney qi and kidney essence. And they're able to withstand the vicissitudes of life.
So, but a person like this young woman who's in her 20s, chances are she's not going through perimenopause. So
No.
A woman doesn't have to be going through a change of life to have a hormonal imbalance, correct?
No, not that change of life, but she may still have, I think with our 20-year-old patient, the first thing I would look for is an imbalance of bacteria in her vagina. Mm-hmm. And she could have something called bacterial vaginosis or a bacterial overgrowth of bacteria that's normally present, but then it becomes an overgrowth, and that can cause thinning of the mucus membrane of the mucosa of the vagina, and that can lead to kind of a burny pain with sex. Mm-hmm. So I would check for that. Sometimes women in their 20s, if they're very low estrogen because they're high stress and they're very thin, or they're even a borderline anorexic, then they may not actually make enough estrogen. And in that case, then she's getting thinner, drier tissues.
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify, so do things like the stress, does like life stress affect our hormonal balance?
Yes, big time. In fact, I'm seeing, and just to translate this over to men, I'm seeing a lot of men in their late 20s, early 30s with really low testosterone. Well, what's going on with these guys? They're usually high adrenaline junkies, or they're under exceptional amounts of stress, and they're not getting enough sleep, and they're not eating good food. And so they're just draining their kidney essence. They're draining their kidney chi. They're draining their overall vitality.
Mm-hmm. So the kind of the modern stressful, like adrenaline rush life actually depletes our life force.
It depletes our life force. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that something to talk about is that really the bottom line here is that this is about our health and our vitality, and really our capacity for sexual pleasure and our overall health are profoundly connected. And this concept isn't new. It has been known by many cultures around the world for ages, and especially in Chinese medicine. They knew that your overall vitality, your overall health and vitality was related directly to your overall sexual energy, was related to your sexual chi. And a lot of patients come to me and they want to understand this idea, and they want to try to, they say, I don't understand where did my libido go, and, how do I rebuild it? And I say, really what we need to do is we need to build your life force, because that's really what sexual energy is.
Yes.
Right? We need to build your life force.
Yes. So if we have poor health, if we don't have good health, then chances are we're not going to have good sex.
That's right. Chances are we probably are not going to have very good sex.
So what are some of the ways that we can build our essences back up if we've been depleting them our entire lives, or even for a period of time in our lives? How can we regenerate that chi?
Good, very good question. I think that the first thing that we need to do is we need to look at lifestyle. And I start with this with no matter what I'm working on with a patient. Always start with lifestyle. And this lifestyle has a foundation. And I'm going to just give it 4 cornerstones to our foundation. And the first one is, what are you eating? And is what you're eating right for your body? Because some people need to be on a paleo diet. Other people need to be on a McDougall diet, which is more of a vegetarian, low-fat diet. Other people need to maybe be on, a vegan diet, and other people need to be on just your average diet with, all 4 food groups happening. Then the other pillar is our exercise. We want to make sure people are doing moderate, the right amount of exercise, not excessive, because that depletes your chi, not too little, because that depletes your chi, but movement that's going to be both yin and yang, yin being the feminine aspect of chi, that we want movement that's going to be nourishing and nurturing, and then we want movement that's also yang, which is more stimulating. In addition, we want to make sure that we've got really good elimination. So our third pillar of health is actually how well we detoxify. It's detoxification. If we are detoxifying well, we're taking the garbage out of our bodies, which is a really good thing. If we're not detoxifying well, then unfortunately this garbage accumulates in our systems. And, if you remember we lived in Hawaii?
Yes, I remember.
Well, if you don't take the garbage out of your house, it is not a pretty picture.
No, it's nasty, stinky, maggots, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and it really doesn't smell good. Well, the same thing happens in our bodies. If we do not take the garbage out of our bodies, we do not feel good, and especially when it comes to the realm of the hormones, because we need to be breaking down our hormones efficiently and escorting them out of our bodies in order to not have heavy periods and ovarian cysts and fibroids and all the other symptoms that come along with liver congestion related to excessive hormones and poor hormone breakdown. And the fourth pillar of health is really the mind and spirit. This is where we want to look at, this is the place where we make all our choices from. And we want to attend to this mind and spirit. And this means really listening to your true inner voice of how you want to direct your life rather than listening to other people and how they want you to direct it. So it's about self-empowerment, and especially self-empowerment in your choices about the kind of partners that you choose to have in your life, the kind of career that you choose, and the kind of choices that you make about yourself. Because I really think, ultimately, that health is the end result of self-love. It's the end result of self-care. And through self-love and self-care, women can build their vital chi, their vital energy, and men can too. And it's this deep well of chi it's a resource of creative energy so that they can flourish in their lives. And that's what it's really all about.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And I was particularly interested in the exercise aspect because I teach the 5 core pelvic movements in Tantra Fit and understand that movement is just as important to nourishing our sexual selves as all the other aspects. And so, Dr. Steelsmith, when you talk about yin and yang movement, can you describe maybe some examples of that?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I think we have to understand that, that yin-yang symbol. Yin is the dark side of that symbol, and yang is the light side. And so you want to think of yin as it representing the feminine aspect of qi, and the qualities that form this type of qi include darkness or nighttime. It's wet, it's moist, it's slippery. Oh, I want you to think of yin as being inside, and it's intimate, soft, and gentle. And in terms of the mind, it's the quiet mind. It's the right brain, which is our creative side. And it's our innate feeling of being one with the universe or the cosmos. Mm-hmm. And it's where we feel love and gentleness, the indescribable, right? It's our innermost being. That's our yin energy. And then we have our yang energy, which is more what our culture is about, right? And it's more that white side of that yin-yang symbol. It's the masculine aspect of qi. And its qualities are expansiveness, it's dryness, it's aggression, motivation, it's explosive, it's outward dynamic movement. And it's more our linear left side of our brains, or our rational goal-thinking part of our brains. And when women have an orgasm, they actually need to let go of their rational part of their brains in order to fully let go into the yin, which is the part of the brain that lets go of control. And they've actually done research on this, that women who are aorgasmic, which means, anorgasmic, that they're not able to reach orgasm, that they don't know how to release control. And, I've had lots of discussions with patients about this idea that they, one patient in particular just never felt safe with a man. She could have orgasms by herself, but not with a man until she found a partner where she was really, really intimate and close to him, and then she felt safe. She felt safe enough to be able to let go and lose control. Mm-hmm. And so yang is that more fiery energy. It's that powerful love energy you feel towards someone or someone you know with all your heart. It's a very dynamic, outward, intense energy. And when we talk about doing exercises to help support our sexual energy, we need to support both our yin and our yang. I mean, women actually need to do both. And, men need to do both as well. In fact, I find that a lot of men exhaust their vital force and exhaust their kidney essence and their qi through being excessively yang, right? Through jumping out of airplanes and, doing all these kind of high intense adrenaline sports. They exhaust their yang, and then they also exhaust their yin energy as well. And so they need to rebuild both of those, which they can do through many different means. One of the ways that I work with women in helping to build this yin energy is I work with them on doing supported Kegels. And Kegels, there's a very large hammock-like muscle in the lower pelvis, and it's called the pubococcygeal muscle. And this muscle it's a powerful muscle that actually holds organs in place. and it's the muscle that's exercised when a woman does a Kegel. Now, a lot of my patients are a little confused, like, well, how do I do this? And, one of the ideas is to sit on the toilet, and when you go to urinate, to stop the flow of urine for a second, and then to continue urinating. And that's just to help a person find the Kegel muscles. But I actually find that very insufficient, because some patients actually think that every time they go urinate, they're supposed to do that, and that's absolutely wrong, because you really don't want to be stopping the flow of urine. And so there are some supportive exercises that women can do. What I like to have patients do is something called a Vagicare vaginal weightlifting, believe it or not. And it's where they can put a little egg in their vagina that has a string attached to it. And first they put it in their vagina without any kind of weight attached to it, just so they can get an idea of what to squeeze around. And then they go ahead and they put like a little weight inside the egg, and they put that in their vaginas, and that gives them not only a weight they need to hold in that will help them strengthen that muscle, but will also give them something to squeeze around as well. And as they get progressively stronger, they can add more weight. And if you could feel how heavy this little egg can get with the weights in it, it's pretty remarkable. And gals, if you can hold this egg in with all those weights in, you've got a really great pubococcygeal muscle. And that PC muscle will help you have better sexual response. It'll give you more intensity to your sexual feelings and orgasms. And it also has the added benefit of preventing incontinence, which is so important. Now, I also learned something from you, Devi, and I actually read about it in an article that you wrote called Benoit balls.
Yes, so the Jade Benoit balls, that is my number one recommendation for women, and that is an aspect, that is part of Taoist sexual practices. And you can get Jade Benoit balls or Jade eggs, and you can get them at various sizes. I usually recommend 20 millimeter Jade Benoit balls, because that is what was prescribed by an American doctor to help women with urinary incontinence. And I just figure, nip it in the bud. Don't even wait that long. Get it right out of the gate. But the Jade Benoit balls, what I love about Jade is that it's a natural material. And according to Taoist sexuality, the Jade actually helps to balance the yin and yang energies within a woman's vagina. It also helps it's kind of like, for those of you that are into gem therapy, it's like gem therapy for your vagina. It also helps detoxify the tissue, and it's recommended for, you were talking about vaginal dryness, it's recommended for women to relubricate after experiencing vaginal dryness. And I think, given from what you shared, I think one of the reasons is because when we're exercising those muscles, we're increasing the blood flow, the circulation, and the chi, the vital life essence. So of course, if the tissue in that area is starting to thin and break down as a result of, whatever causes, bacteria, hormones, or whatever, by exercising it, it's going to increase the strength and the health and the wellness. And also using something inside the vagina actually gives us, when the vagina has something inside it to contract around, we get a much deeper, fuller contraction. And I can say from my own, I've been using these for over 5 years now. And what's funny is that exercise that you described in the beginning about stopping your urine and stopping and starting your urine to identify your PC muscles. When I first started doing Jade Benoit ball exercises, I could not stop my flow of urine. Like, I tried so hard and nothing was happening. And then, so that was my gauge. Within 6 months, I could completely stop and start my flow of urine. So that was my gauge to show that they were actually really, really working.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So along those lines, so yin and yang, so what are some yin exercises? We know yang exercises. I think our culture is very, predisposed to yang exercise. But what are some nourishing yin exercises you can think of?
So doing yoga can be done either in a yang way, like Bikram yoga, right? It's hot, it's fiery, it's intense, or it can be done in a very yin way, and that's like our restorative yoga. In fact, it depends on your intention behind what you're doing. I mean, I think Zumba is going to be yang, but you could make it more, that would be a little hard to make yin, but then there are dancing movements that are much more yin. hiking with a heavy pack up a mountain is going to be yang, whereas doing a day hike is going to be very yin. And so really gauging, really checking in with yourself in what you need and then following that. And I think that being more gentle with ourselves and being more nurturing towards ourselves and getting out of the idea or the concept of self-aggression, which I see happens a lot with people where they just feel like they almost have to flog themselves into athletic submission. You know?
Yes. Yeah,
I mean, it's almost like the energy and the attitude that you bring to whatever you're going to be doing with yourself. And I think that the idea of yin exercises for women are for them to be doing things that are going to nurture them, not just help them have maybe stronger legs or be more flexible, but actually so that they come out of a movement feeling more integrated and more whole. I find that Pilates can be very yin in the way that you have very light weights, very subtle movements, but it works very deeply.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily the actual exercise, it's the intention and the awareness which you bring to that exercise. So
I know, do think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know for me, I hit a point when I started doing a lot of restorative yoga, and I started to actually feel pleasure in movement. Like for me as a dancer and an athlete, and I was very into beating myself up with my exercise. And after doing restorative yoga for a while, I was like, wow, I could actually do yoga and it's pleasurable. So for me, looking at where there's pleasure in the movement or pleasure in the exercise, and I can work my body really hard, but it's a pleasurable thing. I'm not crucifying myself or beating myself up.
And in turn, you're building your kidney essence. You're building that chi and that vital force. And it's that vital force which makes us alive. It's that vital force that makes us creative. It's that vital force that gives us longevity and ultimately health.
So one could say that finding pleasure in whatever we do, is regenerative.
I would say yes, absolutely.
We have a consensus. All right, okay, everybody. Pleasure in whatever you're doing. That is that's your number one restorative and regenerative exercise throughout your day. Finding pleasure in whatever you're doing.
It's true. It's very true, and it's really, I want us to bring to consciousness the energy with which we do our life.
Yes.
Are we waking up every morning and going, oh, I hate this? Or are we waking up and saying, oh, this is just an amazing thing that I've created and I can't wait to go off to work?
Yes, yes. So what if, though? What if we wake up every day? What about for those people who are in pain about their lives and they do feel drained and dispirited and disheartened about their day-to-day?
Well, I think that's a sign that their soul wants something to change. And to start paying attention and bringing to consciousness exactly what it is that would bring you pleasure in your life. If it's leaving your wife or your husband, if it's starting a new job. But I do think that we have to look at the body and its malaise, its rashes, its headaches, its depression, and we need to look at it as this is the body's wisdom. This is the body giving us a red flag and a sign that says, hey, pay attention, something's not right here. And it's time for you to take stock and to actually take a really good hard look at your life, and is this how you really want to be living it? And then making steps to make changes.
Mm-hmm. So all of these symptoms that allopathic Western medicine tries to put a Band-Aid on, cover up, you're saying are actually little red flags, like trying to make us aware that there's some deeper underlying thing going on that we need to pay attention to.
I completely believe that. Yes, I do.
Yes.
I do.
And I often... Sorry, go on.
Mm-hmm. No, it's okay.
No, I was just going to say, so that for me, I'm an avid compassionate communication, nonviolent communication practitioner, use it a lot in my private practice, use it a lot with my internal practice, still perfecting the art. But one of the things I really like to point out to people is that painful emotions, because in this culture we have a tendency to want to overlook painful emotions. And if we're feeling crappy or we're feeling shitty or we're feeling upset or we're feeling scared, we want to put on our big girl panties and get over it and just get on with life. As opposed to actually stopping and looking and saying, wow, I really feel hurt right now, or I really feel disappointed because I have a need for a deeper underlying desire or yearning or need or calling that our soul is crying out for. And that the source of our painful emotions isn't that we're screwed up in some way. The source of our painful emotions is that there's a piece of our soul crying out for attention. And when we put our awareness on that piece, then we can actually have empowerment and resolution and deeper self-connection.
Perfectly said. I completely agree. One thing I'd like to mention, because I get this question a lot too with patients asking about their, intimate relationship, and I talk to them about something called salubrious sex, and I think that that's a safe word for most of my patients. If I say the word Tantra, I think they feel a little spooked by it. But if I talk about sex as being a deeply healing union between partners, and that it's about you communicating in this very sacred, intimate way, and how it's very nurturing, it's very healing. And often they'll say, well, what if he doesn't want to do this, and what if he doesn't want to learn how to pleasure me, or and they kind of bring up all the reasons why this isn't going to work. And one thing I'd like to share with your listeners is, ladies, whatever is happening in the bedroom between you and your husband is parallel to exactly what's happening in the rest of your lives together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if he isn't wanting to learn how to give you more pleasure in the bedroom and isn't wanting to explore having sex be a more healing, salubrious situation, then I want you to look at the rest of the dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you think that sex then is important and vital to every other aspect of our life?
I say for most people. I think some people can go without it. I think I have patients who can go without it and who say, that they sublimate their sexual energy into their music and their art and their creative pursuits, or or their relationship has taken other turns. But I would say that sexual energy, whether you actually decide to have sex with it or not, sexual energy is important. And sexual energy is that vital force. And sexual energy is that creative, powerful life force. And that's the thing that I see people coming to me for, wanting me to help them to build that sexual energy, which is really just their vitality.
So it sounds like also when that sexual energy is built, it's also finding healthy and nourishing outlets for it, because it's not just about going out and having indiscriminate sex. It's about having sexual experiences that are nourishing for not just the body, but the heart and mind as well.
Oh, I completely agree with that, because I think that just indiscriminate sex with many partners in some people can lead to a feeling of vacuousness, and it can kind of empty their vital force, empty their chi, because somehow it's disconnected from love. And really love is what heals, right? It's self-love that helps us to make healthy choices, and it's feeling loved by your partner that helps you to also feel that you're worthy of love and that you are filled with love. And that, I think, is what's so regenerative. It's that love energy.
And so what part of a woman's self-esteem do you think, how does that play a part in her sexual satisfaction?
Well, again, this is like we were talking about earlier. If she chooses a partner, when she's feeling like a 100, right, out of a 0 to 100, if she's feeling like a 100, she's going to choose a 100 partner. If she's feeling like a 2, that's not the time to be making choices, right?
Right.
Wait until you feel like a 100 again. But if you're feeling like a 2, you're probably going to make a choice of a 2. And so if she's making the choice of a 100 with a 100 partner, and this is a love bond, and it is something that's going to really both people feeding energetically into each other, then this will boost her self-esteem and help her to feel loved and cared for. And if a woman is making choices where she's feeling like a 2 or a 10 or even just a 20, that's on a scale of self-esteem, right? Then she's going to make a 20 choice. And unfortunately, women that are running after men in a codependent way, wanting to fix everything, sacrificing herself in order to help others, these kinds of behaviors, there's so much growth for her. There's so much that she can do to grow and evolve and to find new patterns and behaviors in order to find, true love, in order to find a loving relationship that's deeply nurturing and nourishing. Because a high self-esteem woman's going to choose a nourishing relationship if that's what she needs and if that's what they need.
Absolutely. So it's like choosing our relationships and making our sexual choices with as much awareness as we make our food choices.
Yes, good point.
Yes. I often say that sex is like food. Sex is, it can be nourishing or it can be junk food, right?
Yeah, good point.
I have my opinion about lube, and my opinion about lubricant is that if you can't eat it, don't put it in your vagina or on your sexual organs, because from what I understand, the genital tissue is some of the most porous and highly absorbent tissue on the body. So whatever we put on there is going to be absorbed directly into the bloodstream. And there's all kinds of, natural health things that talk about if you put stuff on your skin and it has petroleum byproducts and toxic chemicals and whatever, that is going to go into your bloodstream and toxify your body. And my thinking is, wow, our genital tissue is so sensitive and so delicate and so responsive that if we put all kinds of toxic crap in there, it's just going to plug it up and it's going to diminish our ability to respond to pleasure, to sexual sensations. So what's your opinion on lube?
Well, I agree with everything you just said. In fact, when I prescribe hormones to patients, I have them apply it to the mucous membranes of the vulva or the anal mucosa because these tissues are so permeable and women will absorb basically all the hormone that they put on there. So yes, these tissues are highly permeable, and we do not want to be putting on a lot of lubricants that either disrupt the mucous membrane or that could cause adverse effects systemically. So some of the things that you really want to avoid putting on your sensitive genital tissues are parabens, okay? You're going to find methylparaben in a lot of different lubricants, even ones that look like they're so-called natural. In fact, in my book, I have a whole chapter on this topic because, anyway, I was really surprised at what I found. In fact, I went into my own pharmacy and I threw out probably 12 different bottles of lubes that I had in my office because they had ingredients in them that were not okay. And these were from companies that seemed like they had organic on the label, and they all seemed like they should be friendly and healthy for our skin, and especially for our vulva and the rest of our bodies, but they're not. So we want to stay away from things like parabens, especially methylparaben. You'll see that in a lot of different lubricants. Petroleum-derived products, okay? So a lot of people I know have used, what is the typical
KY?
one? Not KY jelly, no, but petroleum product. We'll get back to that. Silicone oils, we actually want to stay away from these. They really smother and coat your skin, interfering with its normal functions and permeability. There are different names for silicone oils like dimethicone. Again, I found this in one of our natural lubes that came from a very supposedly reputable company. But you'll find that there are many different names for it, which I list all in the book. Phenoxyethanol is found as a preservative, and it can depress the central nervous system in newborns. I found it in a lot of lubricants that were being used to help patients who were infertile, which I found was absurd.
Wow.
We want to stay away from that. We want to stay away from things like glycerin and glucose. Sugars can definitely feed yeast and can alter the pH of the vagina. We want to stay away from propylene glycol because it can cause burning and tissue irritation. And another one that's found in KY jelly is chlorhexidine. We definitely want to stay away from that. Now, this is very interesting information that just came out from the World Health Organization. I think everybody listening should pay attention to this piece. They did, with the help of Johns Hopkins University, they did research on various lubricants that most people use. And they found that some of the lubricants that are used are very popular, like Astroglide and KY jelly, have a very high osmolality rating. And these lubricants with a high osmolality rating, if you remember from basic biology class, remember the fish has so much water in it, and then the ocean has so much salt in it, and then you learned all about osmolarity in that, where osmolality is very similar to that, and that things are going to create an ionic gradient, and it's going to pull fluids across the cell membrane in order to create equalization of salts, okay? So that aside, what was found is that when you have very high osmolality rating, very much higher than the vaginal tissues, that these lubricants actually dehydrated the cells of the vagina and the cervical mucus. And by doing so, it actually put women at higher risk for sexually transmitted infections. Okay?
Yes, yep.
Right. So we want to use lubricants that are closer to the body's own osmolality. And there is one lubricant called Aloe Cadabra that is at almost the same vaginal osmolality. Another one that showed up that was very good was called Good Clean Love. And these are all natural. The Aloe Cadabra, I know, is 95% organic. It's a lovely lubricant. I use that lubricant really with all my perimenopausal and menopausal patients, but I also use it in my patients lactating, who are lactating and have vaginal dryness. I use it in my patients who are going through chemotherapy and having vulvovaginal dryness. For my post-breast cancer patients, meaning, they've had breast cancer but they can't use estrogens, I have them use it on a daily basis to help to hydrate the tissues, because it's almost all aloe vera with a few other ingredients. And it's very important for people to be aware of osmolality, because recent research has shown that for women exposed to human papillomavirus, which can lead to cervical cancer, there are certain strains of human papillomavirus, I'm going to call it HPV, that can lead to cervical cancer. Well, they found that 70% of women, young women, exposed to HPV within the first year completely clear the virus, and 90% of young women clear the virus within 2 years. And what they found was that it's really local immunity that helps these young women clear the virus. HPV doesn't go systemic. It stays local in the local tissue. And that by having, healthy vaginal mucosa and, well estrogenized, healthy vaginal mucosa, that most young women will clear the HPV virus. And the women who tend to go on to have chronic persistent infection of HPV that can lead to cancer are smokers, so women who smoke, women of lower socioeconomic status who have poor nutrition, women who have concomitant infections like chlamydia, herpes, or bacterial vaginosis. Now, bacterial vaginosis, which is an imbalance of bacterial flora in the vagina, that can come from low estrogen, that can come from having too much, pH imbalances due to other issues, and it's very important that those kinds of infections get cleared up, and that women, if they're going to be using lubricants, that they use lubricants that have the correct osmolality.
Right, so things like Astroglide and KY jelly actually upset the natural mucus balance, viscosity in a woman's vagina.
Yeah, in fact, it made the scientists said, it made the cells shrivel up like little raisins.
Oh Jesus, that's awful. Okay, so throw out your unnatural lubes.
I would throw out your unnatural lubes, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, and I have to verify, Aloe Cadabra is also one of my favorite lubricants, as well as Good Clean Love. I recommend it, and Sliquid Organics is one of the lubes that I use. But I can be pretty lazy, so I like to use coconut oil. What's your opinion on coconut oil?
I think it's fine, as long as one thing I can just say that oil-based lubes could increase risk of urinary tract infections, because it kind of like keeps the bacteria in the urethral area, and what we want is flushing it out, right, through urinating. So for women prone to urinary tract infections, I would not use oil-based lubes. I would use water-based lubricants.
Okay, so for those of you out there who are prone to urinary tract infections, no coconut lube, use Aloe Cadabra. Yep,
that's what I would recommend.
All right. Well, we have just a few minutes left. So where can people get a hold of your book? Give a particular recommendation. I love Laurie's book, Great Sex Naturally. It is so congruent with my book, Shake Your Soul Song. So I was reading this book. I was like, oh my God, it's almost like reading my book, but even more in depth on some stuff. So I highly, highly recommend it. She's got an incredible, we didn't get to the aphrodisiacs this evening, but she's got an incredible chapter on natural aphrodisiacs, which are really, really surprising. And she goes super in depth into the hormones. So for those of you who are interested in hormones, and also gives foods, is that correct? Foods that can help balance the hormones?
Yes.
And supplements we
definitely.
can take. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And supplements
definitely.
we can take that help with hormonal balance. So it's just for every woman who wants better love and better sex in her life. It's a great book, reference book to have on your shelf. And like I said, I read it in 8 hours. I just devoured it. So I highly recommend it. So where can people get your book?
Well, they can get the book on Amazon, and it's just Great Sex Naturally, Every Woman's Guide to Enhancing Her Sexuality Through the Secrets of Natural Medicine. I wrote the book with my husband, Alex. My last name is Steelsmith, Steelsmith. You can also learn more about the book and get more articles on my website, which is drsteelsmith.com. And I do have a website that I put together for the book for some of the products that I think are hard to get out in the common place. So for some of the tea tree oil vaginal suppositories or hydrastis vaginal suppositories or Tanafem, these are things that I recommend for women with chronic vaginal infections or to be able to purchase the Vagicare. So that I put together a website to be able to support people who are looking for special products that I mentioned in the book that they can't get anywhere else.
And so what is that website? Is that on your drsteelsmith.com website?
Yep, it's under drsteelsmith.com. And then you can just click on the pharmacy. And so that part of the pharmacy is open to the public.
Okay, awesome. Well, I want to thank you again, Dr. Laurie Steelsmith, for joining us this evening. It's been an awesome conversation. It's been awesome to connect with you again after all these many years.
Well, I've totally enjoyed it. I wish you were here.
Yay! Well, Hawaii, it's just a flight away. I think it's only a 5-hour flight. So I'm due for a visit sometime soon.
Oh, fantastic.
Right on. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us. If you have any questions for Dr. Steelsmith, again, please visit her website, www.drsteelsmith.com. If you have any questions for me, feel free to email me at davieward@gmail.com. If you want the connection or the playback of the show, I'm going to direct you to betterloveandsex.com and or authentictantra.com because we have all the playbacks listed, and I have links to all of my guests. So if you want to follow up with anyone you've heard here on the show, you can do that through betterloveandsex.com and authentictantra.com. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful evening, and be sure to tune in next week for another titillating conversation about how we all can start having more love and better sex in our lives. Good night.